This video is about how your homepage was built, at least the one that I put up for you for the time being until you choose to make some changes to it. I've gone from the dashboard, I've gone to Pages, and I just clicked on it. I'm either ready to edit an existing page or click Add New. I left a lot of these other pages in here, down here at the bottom. These are just samples of different things that I think that you might want to look at some point as we go along and build. The new things you build won't have all these dashes in front of them, so they should all list up here at the top on top of these things. So they're really not going to get in the way. Right now, all we have on this page is the home temp, that kind of thing with the big screen of color that just says coming soon. So rather than building this from scratch, I am going to go ahead and use one of the other pages as a guidepost on this. But if you ever want to take a look to see if there's something in here that you might want, you could right click, or I'm going to option click on the word view, and you could take a look like the typography page I left in there, just so you could see that you could highlight, you could make words strong, which is just another way of saying bold, block quotes, pull quotes, drop caps, what some of the different headline sizes look like, just so you have a rough idea of what you're getting yourself into. The icon page, some themes include, if you ever were to use the icons, a box where it would want to pop up and draw the screen previews of all of those, and that's very handy, but at the same time it actually slows the page down quite a bit as you're building it, for it to redraw all these different things. And normally when you're working on a website, you're not going to use 70 different icons. You're going to stick with 3 or 4 that you use the most. So this page here, I left the pages called icons just so that you could preview anytime you wanted to see what any of these things were called, if you wanted to find a pencil, or if you needed to find like a link icon or something like that. But I'm going to go back here to Pages, and I'm going to click Add New. And I am going to call this Home New. Now the backend editor is the way this tool that's called Visual Composer is set up, that you can build everything from scratch with these blocks, and that's fantastic. It's a neat, handy to use thing. But I'm going to go click here on classic mode to just hit paste. This is the text actually from a different one of your blogs that I kind of comped up. And this is really what the browser reads and turns it into what you actually see on the screen. But once I've pasted that in, I'm going to hit the backend editor now, and it's going to redraw the Visual Composer blocks to show that this thing here is called a row. This object area right here, this is a row, and inside the row there's 2 elements. There's 2 headline components stacked on top of each other. In this particular row, it has a headline block stacked on top of each other, and then you can see this set inside here. It's not all the way out to the side with any white space on top. This is an inner row below it, and what it's just mainly doing is it's set up so that this block of text should look kind of narrow. It doesn't run the entire width of the screen. Then here's another block that has some different things, 2 different objects inside of it, and then here's another row that's set to be 3 columns wide, that has 3 things in it, followed immediately by a mirror row that looks pretty much the same with both of those things, and then another row with 1 thing in it, and then another row with 4 things in it. And this is kind of how the whole page is built the whole way down. So as soon as we've done this, I'm going to go ahead and hit the preview button so we can see what it is that we've got to start with. So a couple things going on. We still haven't set up the menus the whole way yet, so that this area here is still blank. It's got the title bar on this page, but mainly on home pages you don't really want the title bar on it. And then it has the block that had the 2 text objects in it, and then this was the row that had the 2 kind of empty columns at the side, where I said the column was pinched to be narrower, because normally we don't ever want to read text that's the entire width of the screen wide. It's just way too wide. A block that had a couple things with 3 columns, followed by another one with 3 columns, followed by a block that had 1 thing in it, and then a block that had 4 columns in it, and so on the whole way down the page. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come set up that I don't like a few of the things the way they are on the page. First of all, at the very bottom, I want the layout not to be default. That pinches all the text within a width of maybe from about here to about here on your screen. It's okay if I want some of the text blocks to be that way, but I want most of the content to be able to run the entire width from one edge of the screen all the way to the other. I'm going to go to header, and I'm going to disable the header. Actually, I'm going to leave that enabled, but I'm going to, no, I am going to disable the header just for this one home page. Change the title bar to be transparent header with image title. I'm going to leave this being light, and then I don't need to change anything else on it. And then I'm going to re-hit the preview button. And by doing that, it's going to get rid of it's going to get rid of this gap. That was from the difference between going from default to full width. And by a couple of those other button clicks I've done, when I do add the menu, it's going to be transparent sitting here on top of this thing rather than having that space up above it. And it also did a few other things, like in this area here, it automatically got rid of some of that gap between some of the blocks, which sometimes you want, but in this case I kind of wanted this all to be just one big thing. And it did a few other little cleanup things, so that's good. It's a good starting point. So first thing I'm going to do is come up here and say this row. On any of these objects, you'll see three icons typically in a row. This one, when you hover on it, this is a pencil. It's to edit something. This one says to clone it, like you could duplicate it. This is to throw it in the trash or delete the thing. You get the same kind of thing up here. In this case, it's edit or it's throw the trash. And then when I'm on top of the object, it's saying, hey, by the way, this is a headline. Of course, it says it over here too. Here's the edit icon, the clone button, the trash icon. So like if I clicked on this to clone it, I would end up getting two of these things that say this. If I hit preview, we'd be able to see this. And it should say that word 18 going on 30 twice, because I basically just replicated. Well, in this case, I'm going to definitely hit delete to get rid of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this row. I need to get rid of that yellow. There's a lot of different information in here, padding stuff about whether I want the text to be able to be full width. I have the width set to be full row, so the color runs the whole way. This is talking about how wide the content is. So right now, by it being on standard section, that's keeping all the content fitting no wider than about this, from here to here, no matter how wide the screen got. And that's pretty common that people end up doing that for most of their text stuff. Again, when you have the text too wide, nobody reads. I'm going to go to background, and I'm going to just change this background color, the default background color, to, let's just say their green color. This is in case for some reason the picture fails to load. But I'm also going to go ahead, I believe I've placed a picture in the media library. Okay, I guess I haven't. I'm going to go to upload files, select this. And upload this picture. One of the reasons I'm uploading this is because it's not necessarily the greatest picture. It is maybe 800 pixels wide, so, or here, it is, I'm sorry, it's 1,000 pixels wide, so that's maybe not bad. Gonna click OK, but again, on most large desktop screens, it really wants it to be 1920, so this is probably gonna look fine. And I'm gonna just click on this. And just for right now, just call this life in the 785. And I don't know what color it needs to be. Right now I think it's set to be white. Let's go ahead and hit preview and see what that looks like. Okay, so maybe that's okay. This is kind of fading in a little bit, so maybe I'm going to make it white, and I think I'm also going to force it to be a little bit lower by putting a different margin on it, and that way it would read across here, because right here this is pretty difficult. It's a light background, kind of a dark background in here. light background and then a dark background. So to be honest, whether it's white or black, it's going to have a hard time seeing, but if I shoved it down somewhat, it would probably be better. Again, the green is the default in case this just doesn't show up. And yes, I do have the parallax set on this, which means that the text is moving on top of this. So in some ways, the objects and the background are moving independently of each other. So I'll go back to this and say, I don't think it needs to be orange. This is the second headline. And I'll just change this to be F, 6 of those. And maybe also say, this key will give you some idea, 0, 0, 20px 0. This is talking about the margin. The first number, it's always like a clock. So the first number is always the top, then the right, then the bottom, and then the left-hand side. So this is already saying, based on this, as a guide point, that it would be putting 20 pixels at the bottom of the thing. And in this case, what I actually want it to do is maybe put 40px 0, 0, 0. And just by doing that, it just basically says I don't have to put the px's out here because I don't have any kind of a number on it. So if I hit save, I can hit preview. And that should be changing this text to be white, the Our Story, and it should be shoving it lower. Okay, we'll just say that that's great for now, what we are. So these are all pretty easy to do. I can come in here, I'm just going to leave the what we are headline. This is a text block. When I hover over it, it tells me it's a text block. Again, I've got it set inside of an inner row. This inner row is set to be a quarter of the page, then half the page, and then a quarter of the page, and that's going to limit the text to being here. You want to make sure that you don't get used to hitting hard returns. Hard returns mean that you have a fixed width on that, and sometimes the screen's going to be big, and sometimes the screen's going to be small. Bottom line, don't ever hit a hard return. There's almost no case when you want to do that on the web or you are not doing something that's very responsive. So I'm going to come in here and grab their text block, paste this, highlight this, and just hit the normal bold button and hit save. So that should be inside there. I'm going to click on this particular text block, and sometimes you see something called a short code. The short codes are these commands that have these brackets around them. So this is just a line of text that says, you can see what we're up to on Twitter and Instagram, but then it has the short code marker. My suggestion would be, unless you know what you're doing on these, just stay away from them. These are obviously set up for the other team. I'll go back in and replace the command. I could write some code that would be longer, that would maybe be easier to read, but in some ways this short code is a very short and simple way to be able to do what I want to achieve on those two buttons. So I'll take care of that, and I would say stay away from it. Next section, this team had 6 people. Well, this particular blog has 5 people, and you can't have necessarily on a website 5 columns wide. That just doesn't make sense. It wants to be 1 column wide, 2 columns wide, 3 column wide, 4 column wide, 6 column wides. Sometimes you can find one that'll let you do 12, but 5, 7, 9, even though those are odd numbers and you can do 3, it won't let you do some of those numbers. So you're going to have to come up with something different. So I'm going to leave these first 5 people, and then I'm going to go ahead and just come in and delete this last one. It was easier on this one to set it up with the dummy content, which does mean I'm going to have to come in here and say this first person here will be this person's name. And inside the text block, this text looks weird, and if you look at it, it's already highlighted to be headline 6 or the H6, whereas all the rest of the stuff on the page is set as a paragraph. So if I'm very careful and I just type on top of this, I can fix that. If you want to fix the blah blah blahs, just highlight it, delete it, and start typing. But I'm going to leave the rest of this stuff the same, and then I'm going to change this tag to be Edgar, and I'm going to change this to be this person's name. And then when I hit Save Changes, I'm going to go ahead at this point, now that I've got the name set up to be Home News. Oh, no, it doesn't even matter what it is. It should have been Home New. I'm just going to click Publish, just so I save my work every once in a while. And then once that's done, I'm going to hit this preview changes button. It's going to go back to the preview. We're going to be able to see a few of the things that have changed. Once this is done saving. As long as it's wanting to keep redrawing, I'll just scroll down and just show you what the other blocks are on this page. It's another section that includes the categories. Got a link set up that's going to go, if somebody was looking at the category that you had on your blog, they could click a button that'll be below it and it'll take them straight to the page with all the posts about this. And in another section below, if it'll let me scroll down, is the blog slider, which is just a rotating window of all the blogs that you've already started to post, just the test ones that we've got in there for right now. Normally doesn't take this long to update the page. Okay, I'm going to re-hit the preview button. And while that's working in the background, I'll just scroll down and again say, this is where the authors were, this is where the categories are, this is where the blog carousel unit is, which is sliding back and forth. If you ever wanted to, you could always set this up to be just part of this information. It's saying number of posts. By the way, -1 is normally a thing that you can use to say all. If for some reason you wanted to have a category slider to only show something from one category, you could type in that category name here and it would automatically just spit it out that way. Let's go back to see our screen redraw on this. So here's the beginning of this. The what we are has their content. Again, I'll change these. And now we're only seeing these 5 because I deleted that one unit. I'll think of something else to put inside there. 4 units in this next thing, but this blog only has 3 different categories. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all delete the things out of column 4 and the button. Wait to hover, find the trash can icon, get rid of that. And then that's easier for me to come back up in here and find the column picture and hover on the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and it'll reformulate everything across there. Come click on that. Change the background. I already have an image uploaded. These blue squares to go in the background on that. Okay, so subcategories. I'm just going to grab this text. I'm going to put it in here, and if you can see the way this format is, this one thing is headline 4, the rest of this is the paragraph. So I could just highlight this to get rid of it, paste this in, and I will just say I'll set it up like this. Okay, highlight those and put a bullet. Highlight this and change this from the paragraph to, again, heading 4. Click Save Changes. And I will continue to do this just to get this one set up, but just to show you how simple this is to do that. Hit the redraw. Scroll down to find where that area is. Again, just by me changing the text over in there, this should be set up to go directly to this person's post, so we'll try that out here in just a second. what we blog about. Well, I do need to make one big change, and that is that I'm not sure if this black text is going to work on the blue, so I will need to go back in and do an adjustment on the color. But if I clicked on this page here, it should be set up now. Okay, gonna have to do an adjustment on that. Hopefully this is giving you some idea how this is set up. I can change the color of the text in the column by clicking on the pencil icon at the top of the column. I'm going over here to say text and say the text color should be light. I'm going to click on this button. This is what? Food, drinks. I'm going to end up having to change out the URL here for this to end up working. I'll fix that in a second. Maybe I'll change this to be transparent outline. Let's see how that works. Mainly I'm just doing this so that you can see the change by me clicking on the pencil icon to edit this column. That's the easiest place for me to change the text. I could have, in the text block, highlighted the text and clicked the color white, except I wouldn't be able to see it from the screen preview. I'd have no idea what I was actually clicking on. So most people would say the better thing to do is to change it in the bigger setting, like in the column. Again, I need to make an adjustment for why this picture is doing this, but here now we've got white text on this, and we have this particular thing set up where the button changed color, the heading changed color. So we'll just use that as our starting point. Their latest posts are already starting to draw. I'll change the color of this to match this particular page, but it's got their green. And again, here's our footer that we're now seeing down here with everything starting to come to life. So this is just a very basic overview on how we're setting up this page. Every once in a while I should hit the word update, but all of these things are these content blocks that are very easy to, once you see what they are, to hover on them, wait until it identifies what it is, and then decide, do you want to click the pencil button to edit, the clone button to make a second copy of it, the trash button to get rid of it. But that's how you're basically editing a page that already has content on there, whether it's the one that I've helped start you with, or whether it's all those other pages that the theme built that you can go grab and poke around to see how they set things up. Obviously, it's a very different thing if you were going to make a new page all on your own. So I'm going to hit Add New, and I'm just going to make a page that just has a couple of objects on it. So I'm making something new. I'm just going to call this page, just so it'll be easy to find and I can delete. And I'm going to hit the backend editor. And the first thing I would do in Visual Composer if I'm not starting from a pre-built page is I'd click Add Element. The first thing I need to do is I need to add a row. It's this big, again, command thing. Right now it's set up to be one long, wide column. But again, I'm going to just change this real quick to be 3 columns. And then all I have to do is click on this thing inside that column. And then I can pick from any one of these objects that I want to put in there. But it also has this command up here where you can search. So one of the easiest things to do is just to start to, once you get to know the things you're going to use, is just start to type its name. So text block. After a while, you'll be able to figure out where the thing is. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to call this subhead. And again, I'm going to leave all this text as a paragraph. And I'll just change this to be heading 5, a very small heading. Click Save Changes. If I was going to fill and I wanted to write 3 blocks of something slightly different side by side, I could keep clicking on this one and find the text box tool or text block tool and click it and do this. Or I could come in here and hit the clone tool. And now it's got 2 of them in here. And I can grab either one. And when I drag it over and the column turns dark, that means I know where to go. I could let it go, and then I could clone this one, and I could move this one over in here, and I'm just going to hit preview once so that you can see just this really simple thing. But that's how you build it from scratch. The first thing you have to do, there it goes. Could add animation, could add a color behind it, could change the gap between these different objects, between the objects over in here. But it's really pretty simple once you get going to realize that I made this basically block that's 3 columns wide, and then if I wanted to add on to it, I could click on this, and then again tell it to add a new row. And if I wanted to, I could, change the background color of it or any other kind of thing. I can change how many columns it's composed of. I could just click here and put a picture that would run from one edge to the other. Really pretty simple once you get started with it.